This is Aeneid Book 2. We're going to start in line 610. Aeneas is in the city, and his mother has appeared to him. She's telling him why Troy is falling. She's mentioned it's not Helen's fault, it's not even Paris's fault, it's the gods' fault. So the gods are the ones who are creating this catastrophe. So in 610, she specifically discusses Neptune, who is upset because he built the walls of Troy and was not thanked properly for this action. Neptunus moros magnoque emota tridenti fundamenta quatit. We'll stop at our verb. So our verb is quatit, and it means shake. We get quake from it. And Neptune is our subject. Moros is definitely an accusative with the os ending. Magno could be dative or ablative. More likely when you have an ambiguous ending, it's ablative rather than dative, unless there's some reason for it to be dative. And it goes with tridenti, which is also ablative, third declension. Endemota and fundamenta go together. When trying to decide if something that ends with an A is ablative, or perhaps it's nominative feminine, or perhaps it's neuter plural, you scan to figure that out. If it's a long A, it's going to be ablative. So I scanned the line 610. The A of emota is short. You might think it would be long because of the TR, but that falls into the mute liquid rule, because T is a mute and R is a liquid. So emota describes the fundamenta, and they are neuter plural accusatives. So Neptune shakes, and this is all present tense, the walls, and then you can take your fundamenta, which is the foundations. And the foundations upheaved by, and now you can take your ablative with that by his great trident. And this is present tense because she's telling him to sort of look around, look at all the stuff that's going on. Neptune's doing this. Totamque a sedibus orbem erupit. So totam is definitely accusative, and it goes with urbem. Urbs is feminine, so the ending goes with the m. A sedibus is just a prepositional phrase. And erupit is our verb. Erupit looks the same in the perfect and the present. So I would say that it's present because we know that our previous verb has also been present. And he tears up the whole city a sedibus. Now we've seen sedibus as a few different things. It really means seat. It can also be a place where things sit. So like a home or even a temple. So here it's going to tear up the city from its roots. So from the place where the city sits, sort of its base. And so now he's mentioned Neptune. So from Neptune we're going to go to Juno. She's going to list all the gods and goddesses who are hostile to Troy. So Neptune's one. Juno's definitely another. We know all the reasons why. Hic, Juno, Skios, Saevissima, Portas, Prima, Tenet. So we're going to stop at our verb. Hic, if we scan this, would be a long I, so here, so not this Juno, but here. If it were this too, it'd have to be hike, because hike is the feminine of hic. So if we want to say this Juno, we'd have to say hike Juno. So here, Juno, and we have two words that describe Juno, Saevissima, and then in the next line we have Prima, and the book suggests we take Prima as leader. And then later in that line we also have Forens, which goes back to Juno. Line 612 has a interlocked word order. Juno goes with Saevissima, and the Skios goes with Portas. Those are both accusative plural. So Skios is like a word for Trojan. It refers to the gate of Troy. So for that, we might just want to say Trojan, so Skyen. So here, very savage, or you could say the most savage, the most wild Juno as leader, so she's leading all the other gods who are angry. She holds the Trojan gates. A porta is a gate, a portus is a port. So if you think of like Janua is the door, the gates and doors are feminine, portus is actually the harbor. So she's like holding the gate, so she is in a very powerful position. She's not outside, she's holding the gates. Sociumque forens navibus agmen, fero acincta vocat. And she does something else. So socium is accusative, and it in fact describes the augmen, because augmen is neuter. All the words that end in men are neuter, like nomen, augmen. I'm sure there are others. So socium, a socius can be a friend or an ally, but as an adjective it means allied or friendly. So ferens describes and then a navibus, just a prepositional phrase. Fero acincta is an ablative absolute. No, this is one of the times I want to take that back. It's not an ablative absolute. Acincta refers back to Juno. If it were an ablative absolute, it has to be acincto to match Pharaoh. Pharaoh would just be an ablative of respect there. And then vocat is our verb. She calls the allied, what do we say for augment? An augment is a column of troops, sort of a procession. Row. She calls the friendly column furying, right, going crazy. She calls them from the ships. So acincta comes from acingo, acingere, which means to gird yourself, or to gird one's self. The word cinch in English is related to the cincta part. You like cinch your belt, right? You gird yourself. So to gird yourself is to like wrap something around you. So she is girded with her sword. So, or the book says equipped too. Equipped with her sword. So she's ready for battle. So Pharaoh would be maybe an ablative specification or respect. So girded in respect to her belt, or even just instrument, girded with her belt. Okay, so there's Juno, and she's ready for war. And last, she's going to describe Tritonia Pallas. So we saw earlier, Pallas, we know, is another name for Minerva, or Athena. And we've also seen Tritonia described. So don't think about Neptune like you think about Tritons, but Tritonia is supposedly, well, she supposedly is from, or she's like raised by someone. I'm not good at mythology. So Tritonia and Pallas go together, and it really refers back to Minerva or Athena. Iam sumas arces Tritonia respice Pallas incedit. So now, look back, respice. So it's an imperative. She keeps telling him to look. So she's sort of, she's taken the cloud off his eyes. She's telling him to look around. The gods are the people who are responsible for Troy falling. And part of that is, to get Aeneas to stop obsessing about who to blame. And part of it is to make sure he knows he has very little power here. Is he going to fight the gods? The gods are the ones who are doing this. He can't sort of take his place amongst them and fight them. So now she, Tritonia Pallas, incedit, so sort of she sits on, she occupies sumas arces. And so remember, arx means citadel. And we've seen Minerva referred to, especially in the snake section, the snakes go up the citadel into the temple. So she has a temple that's on a prominently sort of displayed or high part of the city where there's a citadel. And so this is sort of calling back to that. On the highest citadels or fortresses. So she's occupying the highest places in the city. Nimbo effulgens et gorgone saiva. So both effulgens and saiva refer back to Pallas. So in apposition to her. So the NS of effulgens is usually, like the NT for the present participle. NS is when it's nominative singular, which is nice because NS is just like nominative singular. So she's sort of flashing. What's the book say? Glittering, I like that. Glittering, gleaming. Fulgeo. There's some good derivatives. I can't think of any. Alright. So she's like shining from the cloud because she's up so high. And so Saiwa refers to her, so she's savage, she's sort of wild. It says, fierce, cruel, stern. Fierce with her Gorgon. So the Gorgon is Medusa, and you'll often see this in depictions of Minerva, that she got the head of the head of Medusa, and she fixed it on her shield or on her breastplate, depending on the story that you read. And so it's supposed to make her even more terrible in battle, right? Terrifying in battle. And so it's so on her weaponry, which shows us that she is also, geared for war. So now that Venus has described, 3 gods. We have Neptune and Juno and Minerva. She's going to tell Aeneas what to do, right, to get back. But not before she has one final god to talk about, the father of the gods. So ipse pater, the father himself. And so here we're not talking about Aeneas' father, but Jupiter, the father of the gods. Danais animos virisque secundas sufficit. So that's our verb. Sufficit is to suffuse. So the Father himself suffuses Danais animos, the Greek spirits, virisque secundas. Now be careful with your viris, because lots of people get confused. Viri, which is second declension, is man. Viris, which is third declension, is strength. And it's also feminine. So one of the ways we can absolutely double check here is that secundas is feminine. And it's the thing that's describing the vitis. So if you're ever translating and you have one of these, it just doesn't quite sound right with man, make sure you remember that it could be strength, courage. So she's diffusing Greek spirits, and secundas means following, but it's got this idea of like favorable and favorable strength. Ipse deos in Dardana suscitat arma. So he himself, so we have a little repetition there. Ipse pater, ipse. Suscitat is he is exciting, sort of stirring up. Suscitat. Arouse, stir up, excite. Okay. Let's not say arouse because that sounds silly. He is stirring up, he is exciting the deos, the gods, in Dardana arma. In can mean in or on. It can also mean against, sort of adversative. So here we have that. He's stirring them up against Dardanan weapons. And that's just another word for, Dardanian is Trojan. So so against Trojan weapons. So we have Neptune, Juno, Minerva, and Jupiter all against the Trojans. Now she's going to give him his instructions. So we have some imperatives, and we have a vocative, nate, what she says, what she calls him son. So eripe nate fugam. Eripe means, right, take, snatch away, grab. Snatch away your flight, fugam. Flight as in the noun of to flee. So your escape, you can say too, for fuga. So like, grab it. Grab your escape. Finemque impone labori. So impone is another imperative. Finem is our accusative. Labori is our dative. Yes, a dative. So impone comes from pono ponere, posui positu, so she needs to place. And impone just means place something on something else. Right, put something on. So we can say put an end. Here we can take our dative, maybe not on, but to. Put an end to your labor. I wouldn't say labor for labor, because labor isn't just like labor. It's hard work, hardship. Hardship works pretty well for labor all the time. So put an end to your hardship, your suffering even, your difficulty. All those are good for labor. So snatch your flight, grab your flight, your escape, and put an end to your difficulty, son. Nusquam abero, et tutum patriote limine sistam. This is nice. We have two future tense verbs, abero and system. Neither one of them are the nice, clean futures that we like so much. They are both irregular-looking futures. System isn't irregular; it's just third conjugation. So it's got the amos et isent. Here, let me show you a fun trick with Latin. Okay, so if you have sum, est, sumus, estis, sunt. It just means I am, you are, he, she, it is, we are, y'all are, they are. Great. And Angela knows this because she's in my advocate. If you want to say I am here, you say ad sum. He is here, ad est. We are here, ad sumus. They are here, ad sunt. Fine. To say someone is absent is not here. You say ab est, which is actually where we get absent. It's like absunt. So they're not here. Ab est. So this word, this future verb ab ero, is the same idea. We have our future ero, eris, erit, erimus, eritis, erunt. So to say I will be gone, you say ab ero. It's the same idea of saying like ab est, except, or ad sum. We just changed it to future tense. Okay. Use your friends at parties with that trick. Okay, but she says nusquam abero, which means I will never be absent. So she's saying I'll be there for you. Don't worry. And tutum patriote limine sustam. We have two accusatives, tutum and te. And then we have two ablatives, patrio and limine. And then our verb, system. I will settle. Now, tutum is definitely accusative. Te can be accusative or ablative, so you have to be careful. It makes more sense for this to be accusative. So I will settle you, tutum, which means safe. And then we have an ablative place where patrio limine. Patrio here is actually our adjective that describes the limine. It's the like fatherly threshold. But we don't use adjectives like this in English. You can say the threshold of your father, even though it's not really genitive. So that's another nice ABAB. And it's kind of like, you like settle things in, you make them into a nice little pattern. So, from here, we're done with book 2, even though there's lots of more stuff in book 2. So Aeneas is going to find his family. He's going to grab them and say, let's go. Creusa is going to fall behind, and she's going to come to everyone as a ghost and say, keep going. And then they leave Troy, Creusa dies, and they have a number of men and women going with them, lots of exiles, lots and lots of people, and they escape. And that's the end of book 2.